Welcome to the Mental Insights Podcast, a conversation aimed at understanding all sides of mental health, addiction recovery, and homelessness. Each interview will include one's personal experiences and insights, or an expert's advice and knowledge within one of these fields. The goal is to promote awareness, guidance, and support for anyone who is affected by these challenges. Thank you all for listening. Welcome back to the Mental Insights Podcast. This is your host, Brennan Catuli. We are here today for part 2 of the 6th episode of season 2 with Robin Marvel. We're here today for part 2 to speak about personal development. And if you haven't heard part 1 yet of the episodes with Robin, we spoke about childhood trauma. So be sure to tune into that episode. Within this episode, we're going to be speaking more about Robin's work as an author and how she's worked within personal development to take these next steps, as well as her being a speaker. Within kind of the realm of this industry, I did a little bit of research, and within the industry of holistic approaches, motivational speakers, personal coaching, the industry is estimated to be almost about $11 billion. So given that, and given that you're a multi-published author and a motivational speaker, how can someone else's story really provide hope for another? What has driven you in order to share your story?
Well, what happened was I actually was doing a radio show about the first book I wrote, and I happened to share a piece of my story on that radio show, and this was like 9 years ago. And the host was said, "Wow!" Like she was blown away because she had not known my story because I hadn't really put it out there. And within that interview, I started getting emails and different people coming to me and saying, "Oh my goodness, like I've suffered similar." Or I've been through kind of a traumatic situation that's parallel to what you've done, and this is inspirational because you went from this to this. And so I thought, it hit me, and I thought, you know what? I think I know everybody goes through some kind of trauma. Everybody goes through situations. Like it doesn't matter who you are. You face definitely some adversity in your life at some point. And if you feel alone or you feel like that's just the way it has to be, then you might never come out of it, and you might continue that cycle, and then you pass it on to the next generation and the next generation. So I thought by sharing my story, I would be able to show people that I've been there. Like I've been homeless. I've been addicted to alcohol. I've been a teen mother. I've made some really poor choices in my life that have led me into negative spaces. But I also made the choice to stop living that cycle, to break away from the programming and what I knew as a child growing up, and to build my own life. And because I wanted to, I learned to make choices. You know, we're so in charge of our life by the choices we make. Every moment we make a choice, we're shaping our life. We're deciding what we're going to do. And there might be things that we have to do, like go to work, but we're choosing to work there. We're choosing the attitude that we're bringing to that environment. So just by being able to share my story and how I went from this terrible circumstances that I was dealt to living a very successful, happy life now, I think shows people that if I can do it, you can do it. And that's what I want to do. I want to be able to be that hand up and share the tips and tools that I use. And hey, some of them might work for you, some of them might not, some of them might work now, and they might work 10 years down the road. So when you're ready. So it's just being able to give that back is really important to me.
That's awesome, Robin. I'm so happy to hear that because it is truly valuable for others to share their stories in order to provide, whether it's inspiration, motivation, or just hope, in order for them to see that there is a possibility, to see that there is, an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for healing, to really transition and kind of connect within our first conversation about childhood trauma within somebody who is trying to develop themselves. Once somebody finds a safe environment, once they've had a traumatic experience, once they're able to be safe, be in a place where the person who was causing these issues is away, is out of their environment, what first steps can someone take to develop themselves, to work within themselves?
The first thing is I'll go back to personal responsibility, because really that is the catalyst to everything. When you're willing to take responsibility for your life and say, you know what, that, yeah, tough stuff happened to me, but I'm not going to let it define me now. And it's too bad that, my dad was severely abusive to my mom, and I watched drug abuse my whole life. But you know what? It's not going to run my life in the present. I'm not going to lose any of my time now stuck in the past. And so me standing up and going, I'm going to be in charge of my life, and I'm going to make the choices, and I'm going to break the cycle, that's huge for anyone to do. Another thing that's so pivotal in personal development and growth, and if you want your life to change, is forgiveness. And I'm talking about forgiveness of yourself and forgiveness of others. And I speak to a lot of domestic violence shelters, and this really hits a nerve with some of the people that I speak to, because they say, well, I can never forgive my ex-husband for what he did to me. It was too horrific. And I explain to them that forgiveness is never about the other person. It's always about you. When you forgive someone, you're freeing yourself from those emotions, because the longer you carry it around, like I could carry around and be mad at my mom and dad, but what would be the point of that now? Why would I give my power and my time away now to something that was back then? So I refuse to lose any of that time. And that's what happens with forgiveness. When you're able to look at the situation and say, I'm not going to let it control me anymore. I forgive them. I don't forget. And I'm not pretending like they didn't do anything wrong. And it doesn't even mean that you're letting them back into your life. But as long as you're carrying those emotions around, as long as you're complaining about what they did to you, as long as every day you're getting up and saying, poor me, that's so awful that this happened to me, that so-and-so did this, they still have control. And do they care? Do they care that you're mad? Absolutely not, because they're the ones who hurt you in the first place. So a majority of the people that you are so angry at, they don't care, but they're still in control of your life. So the sooner you're able to look at it and say, you know what, I forgive them for what they did to me, but I absolutely will not forget. And because I forgive for me, because I want to move forward and I don't want to carry that emotion around anymore. And I think that those are two extremely powerful tools in any situation to help catapult you to the next stage in your life.
Such a valuable, insight of you saying that they're in control until you really take control. I think that's something that's so important to mention, because oftentimes, you're speaking about, you can have this victim mentality. You can really let them still control the way you're feeling and still allow them to, change the way that you're acting and change the way that you're behaving and developing. And you could essentially not develop after that and ever if you let them stay in control. And I think that's something that, people need to learn. It's that perspective change that we've been speaking about, of saying, all right, what can I do now to take the first step forward? And that's so valuable. And especially when you see something as some traumatic experience or some challenge as a struggle, and you can't see anything positive out of this approach, yet a lot of people can. And I think this is something that people can continuously learn, is how can one use struggle as a tool to learn? So whether it's through
Oh, yeah.
experience, gratitude, how is somebody able to use struggle as a positive to use as a tool to make the next step forward?
Right. Absolutely. That's a lot what my book is about. It's about turning pain into purpose, because there's post-traumatic stress and there's post-traumatic growth. And if you look at a lot of stories of different people, stories that are out in the world of people who have suffered like severe abuse, or they've suffered a horrific traumatic event, if they're successful, they're using that pain and they're turning it from struggle to success. And that teaches us so much value, because we're able to have the resilience. We're able to look at the situation and go, you know what, it's not going to define me. It's not going to limit me, but I'm going to use it because I learned from it. And now I'm going to heal and I'm going to progress in a positive way. So struggle is so important in life, because I think when you struggle, you learn who you are. You learn what you can tolerate. You learn what you're going to tolerate in the future. And you just have all of these great character traits that come in, and then you make the choice to heal. You make the choice to look at it and say, I don't want to suffer. I don't want to live staying stuck in this. I did struggle, but I'm ready to forgive, take personal responsibility, and move forward in my life. So struggle is not always a bad thing. It's not always a negative thing to go through a traumatic event. It's only negative if you stay stuck in it and you let it dictate your life. And then everything you start seeing through a wounded eye. For example, my mom had a daughter who passed away from cancer when she was pregnant for me, and the little girl was 3 years old. And she spent a majority of her life being a victim to that. And I'm not taking away, that's a horrific thing, but I'm saying she, instead of growing from it, she kind of stayed stuck in where she was when that situation happened. For a lot of years, she didn't heal. And so that became part of her identity, and that became passed on down through me and my sisters. And so it's very important as she started to heal. Now she's able to take the situation and not let it, not be in bed for months at a time. And that went on for a lot of years, where around the time of her death, she was in bed for a month, and just very depressed and unable to live her life because of it. And I don't rush anybody on healing. I think healing is a very personal thing. I think take the time that you need to take to do it. But I also think that if you stay looking through that wound the rest of your life, that's the way you're going to embrace life, is waiting for the next bad thing to happen, waiting for, you to lose instead of winning, and just stay stuck in that pattern because you're living your life through that wound.
You're speaking a lot about whether it's the perception or whether it's the belief system that someone has through whatever they're healing through. And the belief system, it can really take, I think, numerous different ways, numerous approaches, and it can be challenging at times for people to, change and try to make the steps within their belief system, to whether it's the self-worth, whether it's them thinking they're responsible for something else. For someone who's had a traumatic experience, or someone who's faced a loss within their life that maybe they feel they're responsible for, or any of these cases, how can someone try to change their belief system and try to, whether they see themselves as worthy of living, and whether they see themselves as worthy of trying to heal a relationship with someone else? What are some ways that someone can go about creating a positive belief system, and trying to change the way that they see themselves and others?
I think that one of the most powerful things has a lot to do with the way that we talk to ourselves. Um, we we have been, from a young age, depending on our environment, we have been taught that we are our biggest critics. We are always destructive to who we are. And instead of building ourselves up, we're busy trying to take away from who we are, because we've been taught that to feel good about yourself is conceited or arrogant or whatever. And so every time that we're negatively speaking to ourselves and blaming ourselves for whatever it is, we're taking away from who we actually are. We're taking away from that self-worth. And then we end up feeling like we're not good enough, or we don't deserve any kind of positive things. And going through traumatic experience, when I say taking responsibility for it, I don't mean blaming yourself for whatever happened. And maybe it is your fault. Like maybe there was a reason that it happened and some of your actions created it. But you have to realize that that is just a learning moment, and I think the sooner you can take yourself out of the traumatic situation and say, you know what, I went through that. Here's the things that I learned from it. I think that has the hugest impact, being able to look at a traumatic situation and saying, what did I learn from that? What am I not going to do in my life anymore? What would I not do so that I don't pass that on to my children or keep that environment alive, is probably one of the biggest things that you can do in making that change and reprogramming your self-worth. I did the craziest thing when, it's not really crazy, but it's so cliche. When I first decided to learn to love myself, which was not easy, and I don't pretend that it's easy because it was very hard, because like I said, we're our biggest critics. I actually had to tape on the mirror, I love you. And every time I would go to that mirror, I would say that, and I would have a million reasons not to, like, well, you were addicted to alcohol and you did this and you were pregnant as a teen, and I could come up with a million things that I did that weren't good enough and for myself. And I would literally have to say out loud, stop. And I would have to refocus on, like, but you opened the door for this lady, or you completed this project, or whatever it was. I could find all of these little things that I did that made me feel like I was worth something. And I literally would do that, 50 times a day, to reprogram my belief system within myself. And that changed me. That made a huge difference, and that helped me discover that I was worth something. And then once you know you're worth something, you're not looking for all this outside validation. You don't need your mom or your children or your coworkers to tell you you're worth something, because you know it. And that changes everything. That changes your entire outlook on life. It changes your outlook on the trauma you survived. It changes your outlook on where you want to go and the next steps you want to take in your life. It's that life altering to realize that you are worth something. And it's rare. I think it's very rare because a lot of people spend their whole lives chasing something. And I think that's where addiction comes in. And I think that's also where negative relationships come in, because we're searching our whole lives for someone to tell us we're good enough. Somebody's got to see our value, and we literally are the ones that hold all the power. But we're so busy giving it away because we want someone else to like us that we miss out on it ourselves.
Beautifully said, Robin. I really appreciate that. And when you were speaking about these self-love affirmations, just speaking to yourself, it's something as simple as just like one little change within your daily approach. And I think this
Yeah.
is something in terms of, lifestyle changes that even if someone doesn't have the, the power or the strength in order for them to say, all right, start going through the healing process and going to therapy, maybe one little lifestyle change can maybe help them out of that mindset and help them want to seek those resources and that support.
Oh,
In
absolutely.
in what ways can someone, make a lifestyle change if they're fixated in kind of this, this negative, unhealthy lifestyle, different types of habits or routines that are bringing them down? What ways can someone make one change, and maybe what are some of these lifestyle changes that someone can do that might maybe bring them to see that they need more of a support system or some resources such as a therapist or even just a friend to listen?
I think that one of the first things and this is such a minor thing, and I think that's where you have to start. Like, people, I get so anxious and they think that they have to do these huge grand steps in order for it to count. And that's not true. Just the tiniest little thing, the one little change, like setting your intentions before you get out of bed in the morning. Wake up in the morning and pick one positive thing, like today is going to be a wonderful day, or today I'm going to enjoy my coffee a little bit more. Some kind of intention. Today I'm going to be nice to everyone I meet, leave a compliment for everybody I meet, open a door for everybody that I can. Just these little tiny intentions that can help make you feel better about who you are, and in turn have a ripple effect out into humanity. And you might even pass some of that good vibe on to somebody else, as you're out there doing these things. Is huge. It's huge to just take that time to think about the positive that you want to do, because your mind, you can set your mindset in the morning. Those mornings where you wake up and you're feeling good and you look good and the day just kind of flows and you're just on point. And then there's the days where you wake up and you feel like crap and you don't want to get out of bed and you're bitching and complaining, and then your whole day follows suit. We attract what we are. And so if you can take that time in the morning to set even one intention. I mean, I tell people in my workshops, set 3 intentions each morning. But if you can just start with just one little life change, one little positive thing that you want to do that day, it can be life changing, because then you're going to add more and you're going to see a difference in how you feel. You can't be, I always tell people to create a happy button list, and I've always did this in all of my workshops. And it's 10 things that bring you instant gratitude. And I don't mean like when I lose the weight or when I get the job or when I get a new car. I'm talking about like instant things, like your favorite cereal in the cupboard in the morning, like your favorite plant that you still kept alive, even though plants are hard to keep alive, at least for me they are. So all of these little tiny things, have 10 of them. And then when you're standing in that grocery lane and there's somebody in front of you and the 15 items or less and they got 35 items and you're starting to get frustrated, go to find something on that list. Think about that list. Think about something on that list, because in those little 3 seconds, say you'll be thinking about one of those things, you can't be in a state of gratitude and a state of despair at the same time. It's impossible. So your mind and your vibration shifts right in that moment. And it might not change your entire day, but it changes it for that moment. And then you might find yourself thinking more about your gratitude list and the things that make you happy, like your grandchild's smile or whatever it is. And then you find yourself shifting, and then you're not so angry about these outside things going on that usually would set you off and could ruin your whole day if you allow it to. So it's really about training yourself to seek the gratitude and kind of go to a place where you're happy, even if just for a moment. And it really does change everything. And I've done that with my daughters. I have, she's 9 now, but when my daughter, ever since she was little and old enough to talk, whenever she's had a bad mood, I would stop her and I'd say, who's in charge of your day, Rory? And she would say her, because she was taught that. And then I would say, so what kind of day do you want to have? Do you want to have a positive day or a negative day? And she would say positive, and I'm like, okay, well then you need to take 3 deep breaths, blow out all the negative energy. So we do 3 deep breaths, we blow out the negative energy, and then we would go about our day. And I would say 98% of the time, it changed her whole mindset, and she was able to let go of whatever anger she was having, or, whininess, or whatever it was. And so, I mean, we have the power to do that. We're in control of our attitude. We're in control of our emotions. And we might go through things that kind of leave us feeling down and out. And that's okay too. We can have those moments, but we just can't unpack and live there. We have to have them, heal them, and move forward. Otherwise, we'll get stuck there. It's very easy to do. And that in turn leads to depression and more trauma, and just kind of existing versus living.
That's great, Robin. Even, as you're saying, even one small thing, even one small action or belief can drastically change the way you go about your day. And I think, what you said in terms of those daily intentions to start your day is something that is so profound for many people, and it can cause such a great impact within your day, even if you wake up feeling like your day is going to be a horrible, a negative one. You can drastically change that by setting these intentions, setting how you want the day to go about, and doing what you can within your beliefs, within your actions to make that move forward. I think that's great, and something that people should definitely consider to do within their day, even if they journal it, even if they speak it towards the mirror as they start their day. It's something that can be of great value to them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, we've spoken a lot about childhood trauma, the steps that people can take to move forward, as well within personal development. So, what kind of people can do on their own, but as well what they can do simultaneously as they're going through these healing processes. As you've been writing books already, as you've provided speeches, you've done motivational speeches for many people, you're working throughout these fields of self-development, of personal development. You're trying to help people by providing these resources to make these next steps forward. But in this hypothetical situation, I want to see maybe what else we can do within this realm, within this topic of trying to help people overcome these severely challenging experiences, such as a childhood trauma. So, in a hypothetical situation, I want to offer you the opportunity of getting a large sum of money. So, even say it'd be such as $1 billion. I want you to kind of piece together where you'd allocate these resources in order to assist those facing childhood trauma. So, give us your hopes and dreams in order to attack the problem of childhood trauma, and what are some of the most prominent resources that we could provide children today in order to take the next step and heal and move forward within their lives.
If I had this is one of my goals, and this is something I will do in my life, and I want to build rehabilitation centers, and they're kind of like homeless shelters, but they have a huge foundation of teaching self-worth and rebuilding a person so that they know that they're worth something. And I think that you can hand out things to people all day long, but when you instill some kind of self-worth and value to them, it changes everything. So I definitely will do that at some point in my life. I also think that for kids, the most important thing we can do is get in as parents, and also, get into the school system and be involved in building self-worth, because these kids, they struggle a lot. School's a lot different from when I was in school now, and social media, and we need to teach our kids how valuable they are, and that they don't have to hurt somebody else to have their own self-worth. And we also have to teach them that even though they may have went through something traumatic, we're here for them. And I think those are the resources that really are going to matter, is the resources that teach self-worth and that help people to understand that healing is okay, that it is okay to go through these situations, that it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you, or that you're stuck a certain way for the rest of your life, or that you're never going to be able to have this or do this. I hear so many people limited because of something they went through. And for me, that's just never been an option. I've not ever sat around and thought, well, I can't do this because I had a terrible childhood, or, I just have never been that limited person. But that is something that is out there and a lot of people are doing. They're keeping themselves limited because their mom didn't tell them they loved them or whatever the situation was. And then it in turn becomes excuses. So I just really think the more we can educate people on you can have post-traumatic growth from these situations, and the more we reiterate the fact that you can heal from it and it doesn't have to become a part of who you are, the better it's going to be.
Wonderful. Thank you, Robin. I really appreciate that answer because those are definitely some great steps that we can take to move forward within, this industry. And I'm really excited to see the next steps that you take within these fields. And for anybody who has listened to these episodes so far and want to hear more, want to reach out to Robin, you can check the show notes with all of her contact information as well as her website and links towards her book so you can read more and understand more about what Robin has experienced and her insights towards the fields of childhood trauma and personal development. So, within that being said, I'd just love to thank you for being here, Robin, to provide, your insights within these fields and really to bring about such a wonderful conversation about your own personal experiences and what you're taking to help others who are experiencing similar issues.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me and letting me share my story and things with your listeners. I appreciate it.
It was my pleasure, Robin. I thank you for being here. You were the sixth episode of season 2 of the Mental Insights podcast. So thank you all for listening again to the Mental Insights podcast, and let us know what you think below in the comments. Please like, subscribe, review. Let us know what you guys are thinking. This has been your host, Brendan Catuli of the Mental Insights podcast. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for listening to today's episode of the Mental Insights podcast. Make sure to reach out to today's guest or myself if you need any advice, guidance, or support in your life today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and review to this podcast so we know what you thought of this episode. I look forward to being in touch with you all in the next episode. I hope you all have a wonderful day.